I was in the Southern League, so I'm riding 14-hour bus rides, getting off the bus at 7 a.m., sleeping for 3 hours, and then trying to, dial it up against, A-Rod and the Jacksonville Suns. So it's like, it's a different ballgame.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 11 of Mound Visit. I'm one of your hosts, Casey Honigbaum, joined as always by the all-star, 13-year Major League veteran, Jason Grilli. Today we got a very special guest. We're welcoming one of Jason's friends from right here in upstate New York, former Major League pitcher himself, first-round draft pick of the Chicago Cubs, Jon Ratliff, so we're super excited to get into that. But before we do that, we want to remind you guys, subscribe to the show on YouTube, Top 100 Sports Network. If you just like to listen to your podcast, follow the show, and leave a review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. That's also Top 100 Sports Network. If you want some more clips or you want to let us know, maybe some guests you'd like to see on, some topics you'd like to be covered, let us know on our social media channels. All of those are at Top 100 Sports Net. You could find those at Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. And without further ado, let's get into the interview.
We got Wednesday, Mound Visit, April 12th, with one of my rabbits and heroes from my childhood, my heyday. Another fellow Syracuse, New Yorker, first rounder, nonetheless, from Syracuse, New York, Jon Ratliff. Thanks for coming on this morning, taking time out of your busy day, buddy.
Thanks for having me, buddy. It's great to be here on a sunny 70-degree day in Cuse in April.
That's a rarity, man.
Yeah.
That is a rarity.
Yeah. Jon, talk to us real quick. I want to ask. I know you dipped your toes in the water for a couple of major league franchises in your day, but which do you root for one now, or do you kind of root for a bunch of different ones?
No, I mean, I don't have a team at this point. My son watches the Yankees a little bit, so I'll check them out. But when I got done playing, it was basically following my buddies that I played with, and then now I'm old, so most of those guys are gone. So, I don't really have a team. I still watch the game. As it gets closer to playoff times when I watch a lot, but regular season, I'm coaching my son now, so I don't catch as many games and stuff like that. But so I don't have a team.
Nice.
No, the Pirates are my team. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon. They look pretty good right now. They're hot, 7-4. They won a walk-off last night. I was at the game. It was pretty cool. So I'm hoping we get that resurgence. It's 10 years since the Pirates were in the playoffs in 2013. Mm-hmm. Some of my homies and my frat brothers. So it was cool. And have a major league team, 3 major league teams in our area. It's pretty awesome. Rat, I know you got the minor league team right down the street.
Yeah, we got the Mets. They do a great job. So It's been nice to have them. Last year, DeGrom was up here throwing, so I brought Carter out, my son, to see him and some of his buddies. So it was cool. But yeah, it's nice to have a minor league team and something like that around close, because obviously you have Pittsburgh now being down there. When you were playing, you played for like 50 teams, so did you follow them all? Or
Yeah, no, I just collected jerseys. I've always been a Blue Jay fan. Before the Syracuse Chiefs turned into the Mets organization, which I know, Casey, you love that, right? That's Casey's team, the Mets. Yep. So I know a lot of New Yorkers. It makes sense. You know how they relined all these teams for travel and expenses. But yeah, I still love the Jays. I try to get up there. I got to renew my kid's passport so we can cross the border again. And we went up for the playoffs. Funny story about Steve Grilli. I'm going to throw him under the bus because he just left. My son and I, we went up to watch the wild card series against Seattle. And my dad had a water bottle in his back pocket. He sat down on it, and he's creeping up there. He's in the 7th inning of his life. He's 73 years old, going on 74. And I didn't know he had a water bottle in the back pocket. Well, he sat in the lobby on this like velvety material couch, and he got up to go to the bathroom, and he's like grabbing his ass, walking to the bathroom. I looked at my son. I'm like, oh no. He's like, what's the matter? I go, I think we might have to go to the store, Jace. He's like, what do you mean? I go, we might have to get Grandpa diapers
before
we go to the game. I didn't know he was the water bottle. We had a good laugh over that, so it happens,
He's, as you said, 7th inning stretch for him, things happen.
Things happen. Everything's fading. We're turning gray. Look at us, Rat. Look, I got grays on. Dude. I don't know if it's the stress of what the in-game life we had, but I have to say, I looked at some of your pictures on Google before, and when I was a big card collector. It looked like you had some modeling shots on some of your
Yeah, I
cards.
had one of these going. Yeah, a little high school photo. I was like, oh, don't think I didn't take a lot of heat for that for 10 years. Every time a fan came by with that card, all my buddies are like, dude, how did they get you to do that?
Well, it's enshrined in Google. There's a couple photo shots. I was like, I hated photo day because there were some card collectors and they were taking pictures for Tops. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, get me in action. I don't want to do a model shoot.
No.
You know?
And it's like 7 in the morning, you're barely awake. Everybody's throwing on the same hat, so it might be a bucket hat about this big.
Yep.
You got the same jersey on. Like, yeah, get me on the mound.
Right. Your glorified moment. Like today, look, girls, all these women look beautiful with their filters and stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't have that for our days, but Top
What you see is
Studio.
what you get.
Yeah. What was it? Top Studio? I think there was like Tops because I don't even know. This is the last year they're going to even be in existence, right? Tops.
Tops.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
No, so Tops is still in existence. They were just bought by Fanatics, which runs all the
That's right.
every major sporting franchise's not memorabilia, but all their merchandise and everything. They now own Tops. It's still going to be Tops, but it's technically owned by Fanatics. So I don't know what that means for.
I mean, I still got my $1 check that they sent way back when you signed as a rookie. Like, hey, here's your $1 check from Tops.
Well, listen, it's probably because you did the studio look, the high school photo.
Exactly. I was the one guy who did the glamour shot.
That's right.
Did they come to spring training for you guys? How did that work when they took pictures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a big photo day, once a year in spring training, and I don't know if it's Tops or who it is, if it's all of them, but literally it's like a cattle call and everybody's just rolling in. So, yeah.
Listen, we let's not always take the rag. This morning before Casey did his photo op today, hair and makeup.
Yeah.
Gillette had a field day with his chin. That's why he's got the mic right in front of his chin. He hacked at himself today.
Yeah.
Heavy bleeder.
Yeah, it was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre down there for a little bit. So yeah, we're doing better now, but we adapt and now we're ready to. We had a quick, it was like Nolan Ryan on the mound with his busted chin, just blood dripping down. So
there you go. I got that picture right here. Like
there we go. That's exactly what it looked like. Yep.
That's the one.
That's a bad man right there.
Yeah. Oh, dude, what a documentary. Have you guys watched that? I hope people have seen that. I had tears. I watched it on the plane.
That was awesome.
I was in tears because it was watching something legendary. I mean, the guy's no one will ever beat those records anymore. No complete games. Right, Rad? What the stat that we're going to get into your career, dig a little bit deep because one, we're the has-beens, right? The further we get along, it's always about the guys now. Yep. And the brand of baseball is different. I don't know if you and I would have even made it to today's standards. Who knows?
Yeah.
What are some of the things you notice or likes, dislikes? We always talk about these changes and with the pitcher's clock. I would have probably lit one up, thrown one at the 30-second clock in my peripherals. That's annoying, really.
Agreed. Totally agreed. I mean, I don't like it. I mean, you look at it in the most popular game for sports fans, probably NFL, right? Every one of those games is 3.5 hours. Nobody complains. There's a huddle between every play. They're walking back to the huddle, all that stuff. There's breaks in the action. I think the biggest problem baseball has is guys striking out and not enough action in the field.
Right.
I think it needs to go back to some of the small ball stuff, moving runners, keep it exciting. Pitchers don't throw a ton of strikes. They just rear back and let it fly. I mean, you see it even more on the younger levels, which infuriates me. But you're right. I mean, back when we played, there was pitchability. Can a guy pitch? Can a guy get guys out? And now it's like, how hard does he throw? And you see these videos online of guys with no shirt on, crow hopping and throwing 90. It's like, oh, okay, nice. So I don't love all the changes. I don't get the bigger base. I mean, maybe there's some safety around first base. But it's crazy.
I think they should have a sponsor on the pizza box for every one bite pizza by Barstool Sports, man, should get in on that.
Yeah,
it sponsors. Motorola's got a big logo on. I said it's going to turn into something crazy, and that just tells you this game has turned into the globalization and the monetization. Which again, any business. I tell people, everybody goes, oh, there should be a salary cap. I go, do you want to not make more money in the business you're in, the company you're in? I don't know. But I think that's stupid. It's silliness when people say that.
Do you guys actually notice the bases?
What's that?
You notice the bases? Because to be honest, I mean, I've watched baseball my whole life. I don't know if I even noticed it, but maybe that's just me. I don't know.
They look bigger, I think.
Okay.
And especially when guys are going around second base turning two. I mean, I know it's not much, but
right.
You can tell a difference. That's the other thing. Like now second baseman can't get taken out, home plate can't get taken out, no collisions.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived like back in the day when Pete Rose broke a guy's jaw in an All-Star game, stuff like that. So
Legendary.
now you can't see any of that stuff. So it's just the game's changed a lot. And I listened to Brett Boone, who was one of my teammates back in the day. He had his podcast, and he talks about it all the time. Like his claim to fame was the way he turned two. And you get late in the game, and he'd have to, he'd have some guy bearing down on him to take him out. And he prided himself on that. And he's like, now, I mean, anybody can turn two. You got a third baseman who's playing a shift, and they're turning two. So game's changed a lot. Obviously, I think it's still a great game. I love watching, but it's definitely a different game than we played, Jay, for sure.
Yeah, well, like to that point, taking out a base, the only base that's not bigger is home plate, and we lost one of our star players here in Pittsburgh to a broken ankle. Everybody saw that if they were watching.
Yeah.
Just a timid slide, and you're not allowed to go hard into a base.
Yep.
And that's when you're timid in anything. I mean, he could have still got hurt if he slid wrong, but I think that hesitation. Anytime you have a hesitation in any sport, that's the hesitancy. It's not committing, right?
Yeah.
Agreed.
And
totally.
Get injured, and that's what happened there.
It didn't even look like he was ready to slide, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Sorry, John. What were you going to say there?
I mean, it's in the past he probably would have collided with the catcher or gone in harder, but like you said, as soon as he started to slow down, then his cleat caught, and now he's out for however long.
Right. Well, they should make the home plate bigger if people are worried about speeding up the game.
Make it wider, more strikes.
Hey, I don't know, man. Again,
pitchers would love that. There you go.
It's a topic, and this is why it gets crazy. I think it's going to be interesting if that comes into play during the playoffs.
Yeah.
Game 7, if I needed an extra second as a pitcher or as a hitter to mentally get ready for the biggest moment in your career in life, like, okay, you got your big league debut, you got drafted, you got your big league debut, now you're an everyday player, you make the all-star team. If you're lucky, put a feather in your cap, get to the World Series and win the ring, right? On top of maybe put another, hey, I got a multi-year deal somewhere in those 5 things. Now you're going to rush me? Like, you're going to rush me in the moment that could mean whether I get a championship ring that says World Series or AL or NL championship on it. Crazy. I don't know. I like my steak cooked the way I like. I don't rush the cook in the kitchen when he's preparing my steak. I want it to come out the right way. So, I don't know, a second or two, that time that you say you can't get back by going to a ball game and, maybe you're in that line trying to get a beer and then you're the last guy to not get it because, hey, it's 2 hours and 30 seconds. We're out of here. Thank you so much.
I mean, definitely there should be no clock in baseball. It's some of the beauty of it, right? And to your point, I mean, what's 2 seconds? And then the other thing is how much grace period are the umpires going to give of when that clock starts, when they actually call it? Because I've seen some games where the hitter almost looks rushed because they just kind of step out and they're gathering themselves. It might be 0-2, and you're kind of like, you want to take a breath and just regroup, but you can't because you got to get back in for fear of, okay, strike 3 and you don't even get a chance.
Well, who's going to manipulate that home field versus who's pushing that button? Is that manipulation to that?
In a big situation?
Big situation, big game on the line. I think it's going to come into something, and then, you know what, they'll do away with it. You'll see another change. It's to keep the topic going. I think that's what it is. We have all these talk shows, podcasts, everybody wants to be relevant, validated, and that's what we're here, man. We got some of my heroes again. Jon Ratliff, man, a legend from LeMoyne College, Liverpool. We had another fellow Liverpool guy, Scott Brown.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And transition from little poop shooter, little thumber.
Heck of a pitching coach now.
Is a hell of a pitching coach, right? At Vanderbilt. So you Liverpool guys, I don't know. I was a Pavilion, and we rivaled us pretty good, but.
I'm Beeville now, so it's different for me because my son will be wearing the red and black instead of the orange and blue.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, it's definitely a different animal over here. Liverpool's changed. It's baseball in general around here has changed because when we grew up, I mean, all the kids that couldn't hit a curveball played lacrosse, right? So and now it's like Baldwinsville's winning state championships in lacrosse, and so that's kind of the king. But Beeville does a great job. Dave Penafeather was a guy I grew up playing with as a coach there now. He's done a great job with the program, and so I'm excited to see kind of as we come through. But yeah, we had some battles back in the day with Beeville.
I love that Cobra Kai shot at the lacrosse play. Charlie Lockwood is one of our guys.
I was going to say, I wonder what Charlie will think about that. I wanted to ask you, John, before you, we'll get to. I want to get to your playing career a little bit too, but I wanted to ask, since we were on the topic of the pitch clock, this is a question I've been wanting to ask. Especially two former major league pitchers. What do you guys think about? Because this is something I've wrestled with. What do you think about taking the pitch clock out in the ninth inning? Because you look at basketball and you look at football. Football, you've got all these timeouts. It seems like, and then the 2-minute warning. It seems like the last 2 minutes of a football game start to slow down, and people have kind of accepted that. Basketball, you've got timeouts being called left and right. All that stuff going on. The game seems to slow down in those last couple of minutes of a basketball game. So why not get rid of the pitch clock? And you can use your judgment on that if you're an umpire. If it's a blowout game, maybe you don't need to. But if it's the ninth inning of a 2-1, 3-1 game, a 0-0 game, take the pitch clock out. What are your thoughts on something like that?
I mean, I don't disagree with that. If you did do something like that, I almost would back it up to probably like 7, 8, 9.
Sure.
Because sometimes the seventh and eighth inning are the biggest outs of the game. The closer, Jake can attest to it. He was a setup guy for a while, and then a great closer for a few years. But sometimes those eighth inning outs are even harder. You come in, you got guys on, and you're facing the meat of the order. So that, I don't want to see the pitch clock at all. But if they did do something like that, I don't have a problem with it. And again, I think it goes back to how much leeway are the umpires going to give? Are they going to give you a second or 2 or 3? Because sometimes you just need to regroup. And then even if you're not getting the sign, you're shaking your catcher off a bunch. Like, how much can you step off then? Or do you have to throw a pitch? Is it a ball? Like, I think that's what remains to be seen.
Yeah. I think about A.J. Burnett. There used to be in Miami, there's footage of it. And A.J., the former teammate of mine twice, there was a truck. I don't remember what it did. Every game would go behind home plate. And his warm-up pitch, you remember this?
He drilled the truck.
He drilled the truck. He was so pissed at the truck. He threw one of his warm-up pitches through one of the windows.
Yeah.
So I wonder if A.J., knowing how A.J. was when he pitched, I know how I would have done. I think I would have, if something like that pissed me off or cost me a game or a moment to be ahead or behind, whatever, manipulate the situation not in my favor, I think I would have reared back and thrown it. Probably got a hefty fine. But I'm waiting to see. If somebody gets pissed off and just beats the clock literally with a bat or goes over there and crow hops one right into the 30-second timer.
Like you said before, it's distracting, and like, who wants to see? Like, you've never seen it. Like, everybody who's grown up playing, you've never seen that in your life, and now you're staring at this thing and going, "Oh, I got 3 seconds left. I better pick up the pace." It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. No, it's weird. Even the umpires coming out on an instant replay, where they go, it looks like they're like NFL referees with the white hat on, coming out like, "We have a timeout on the field, and we're checking this out. I didn't know if there was clipping at second base. We got a 15-yard penalty." It's oddities, right? Again, and it's not to knock it. I love the game. I know you love the game. We all love the game, and we're not trying to sound like Grandpa who walked to school to and from 5 miles with snowshoes up and back. It's hard. Change is always hard, no matter what it is. I don't care what the topic is. They did something in school different. It screws with you because when we're disciplined people, we're not motivated. And when you get in that rhythm and timing of things, I don't know. If a musician said, "Hey, man, we got to get this concert over." Well, wait a minute. I was about to bust out in this jam on stage because I was feeling the crowd. Mm-hmm. The crowd's getting shortchanged a little bit. So,
it's an adjustment
but we're
period
jamming
for everyone. Yeah, I think we're all everybody's still getting used to it, starting to figure out. I think, and the nice thing is that Major League Baseball has said they will, if enough needs to be done, that they will, the rules aren't set in stone. Basically, they will change things. So, So we'll see.
Experiment.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of experiments, Rat, let's get into your career, man.
Exactly.
What was some of the highs, the lows, some of your stories, clubhouse, funny humor? Don't throw anybody under the bus.
I can't do that. Yeah.
No, this is not a tell-all radio station, but give us some of your stuff that you.
Some of the best time of my career, obviously being a first-round pick from this area was kind of, to start from the beginning was rare at that time. You surpassed me and got even higher than I did, like 4 years later, but. So coming in that first year with the Cubs, there was definitely some nervousness as a kid from upstate New York. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of eyes on you, and like you went to Seton Hall, so you had a little bigger experience than I did at LeMoyne, in the college ranks. But I remember the first time trying to size up like who I was as a player was the Cape Cod League, and going there, I made the All-Star team there. Billy Wagner was one of the guys that was in that league that year.
Oh yeah.
Great story about him, actually. The first game we played, they had the roster on the side of the dugout. And he comes in the ninth inning, this little 5'10 lefty. He's blowing about 150. The lights are terrible. Can't see anything. And so it didn't have his name. It just said it had his number in Ferrum College. Because I think it was Ferrum.
What team were you on? What team did you play for?
I was in Hyannis.
Oh, that's a good one.
He was with Brewster. So literally first game, and the roster's up, and most of the guys, Florida State, all these big-time schools. So me at LeMoyne, I'm like already trying to see how I size up with these guys I just watched in the College World Series. And then Billy Wagner comes in, and so we just started calling. He didn't have a name, so we called him the Legend. He came in, and then as the summer kept going, it was like, holy cow, this guy's a stud. And then obviously becomes arguably the best
saves, right?
closer. Yeah,
should be a Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah,
I agree. But when he came in, like we were just like, who is this dude? But that's how it goes. And then
he's a great guy
back
too.
To kind of my Cub days, I definitely felt the pressure the first couple of years. I think as a first round pick and trying to do too much, and I kind of flew through the system similar to how you did, Jay. Where the 12th start of my career, I was in AAA, and I'm 21, and I got some innings in big league camp that first spring where I faced Griffey Jr., got him out.
The steroid era too.
Steroid era, yeah, kind of the heyday of it, right? So,
right. And our skinny asses trying to make our way.
Yeah, I'm like $180, at the time. And speaking of, Sammy Sosa was the stud of the Cubs then, and he was 30-30 Sammy guy then, and blowing his kisses and hitting 50 bombs. And growing 20 pounds a year.
He looks a little different though, right? Google
a lot different now.
His mug shot now. He's a little different.
Yeah, he's a little different now. I don't know what he is now, but yeah. So I think those early years was more just kind of feeling it out and trying to find my way. And I know you dealt with a lot of injuries. I was healthy early in my career and got hurt towards the end when I kind of was breaking through. But
and you could hit too, buddy. That's why I think you could hit too. I remember back in the day watching. Yeah. I was like, man, he could pitch and hit. This guy.
Hit. Yeah.
Shohei Ohtani before Ohtani.
Griffin Field is no longer. I remember going to watch you at Griffin Field and go. I did. I tried to make every game you pitched. You were my rabbit. I was chasing. You were the big name in the area, and you led the charge, man. So I wanted to thank you. Always, I do.
You got it. You also surpassed that, though.
That's okay. People are going to surpass me, man. There's some guys in Central New York and anywhere now. It's just. We had to grow up in basements, right? And now there's turf fields and better batting cages, and the game has gotten better. Yeah. The brand of baseball should get better if kids are going out there and doing their thing. I mean, we would have been addicted to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had no indoor. We just finished. We had our last practice for my son's 12U team. We had 15 practices indoor, right at the place right here in Beeville. And back in the day, it's like you put the glove up in August, or like you said, I'm in my basement with a rolled up tape ball. Pitching 9 innings in my basement, right? So now it's a totally different animal, and with the travel stuff, and it's become a year-round thing, which is a whole, kind of different topic. But
we are the geezers, dude. We sound like geezers, dude. Now we do. I'm just
saying.
We try not to be, but we are
100%. But yeah,
John,
especially up here. I mean, you're throwing snowballs for 4 months, and then
there you go. That's
pick
right.
up the glove in April, and you're lucky if you have some sunshine.
I want to ask you, John, because it's an interesting point that you brought up, and I think a lot of kids have, even though maybe your big league career might not have lasted as long as you would have hoped, you were still a first round pick.
Everybody, man. That's for everybody.
Well, right. But you were still a first round pick, which is more than 90%, 99% of people who want to play baseball can say.
Yep.
What can you say about that? Because what you said was interesting, talking about feeling the pressure of being a first-round pick, and I'm sure there are kids who would love to know what that is like. How did you try and compartmentalize that pressure of being a first-round pick and sort of, what was that like? Did you sort of have to learn how to, let the game go, and what was that like for you?
I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to do your job and pitch. And so honestly, the most relaxing time is once you kind of get going and you get out there and throw your first 2-3 pitches. But you can feel eyes on you. I remember the first time I threw when, I made my first start in Geneva, and they basically did that because it was close to home so they could draw a crowd. And, from the first bullpen I'm throwing, nobody's there for the kid that was throwing before me. And all of a sudden I go to throw my pen and there's like 10 players behind. All the coaches are over there. The scouting director's in town. The GM's coming in. It's like, so you feel the eyes, but at that time you've already signed. So probably the biggest part for me was I had a decent first year. And then when I went into my second spring, I had a good spring training. Like I said, I got some innings in big league camp, pitched well, didn't give up any runs or anything. But I was 21, so I knew I wasn't making the team. Didn't know where they'd start me. But by that time, the GM who drafted me, he'd already been fired.
Oh.
So, and Jason could attest to this. I mean, when you get in there, you got to have a sponsor. Somebody's got to like you to keep pushing you through. And once those guys went away, it was almost like I was still a first-round pick, but now I had to prove myself to a whole other organization of guys.
You get redrafted every year, man.
Yeah. So my 3 years with the Cubs, I mean, we had 2 GMs, like 3 scouting directors. I had different coaches all over. And, my first year, I bounced between like I said, my 12th start was in AAA. So I go up, this guy, somebody had a death in his family, whatever. So I go, they were struggling. I throw 6 innings, get a win. So they send me back. 3 days later, the guy's still away. They call me back up. I win again, or maybe I got no decision, but I went 6 innings again, threw well. So now the coach is pressing in AAA for me to stay. And so, I end up sticking around for about a month. I pitch well. I have 1 bad start, and I think I was like 2-3 there or something like that. And but I pitched well. ERA was good, and then and then at the All-Star break they sent me down to AA. So now I got another pitching coach. So now I'm my 3rd pitching coach of the year. They're trying to change me from a sinker curveball guy to a sinker slider guy.
Oh boy.
My arm angle got messed up a little bit, so I went through kind of a 1.5 year period of trying to find myself.
Yeah.
And the first round thing kind of went out the window because now I'm just like trying to survive. I had a really tough year, my first long full season. Plus, Jake can probably, attest to this as well. Is coming from New York. I mean, the most innings I threw in a year was about 100. So when I got to August, that first full season, and I'm at 150 innings, I'm throwing like 65, it felt like. So, you get some wear and tear on you. I was in the Southern League, so I'm riding 14-hour bus rides, getting off the bus at 7 a.m., sleeping for 3 hours, and then trying to, dial it up against, A-Rod and the Jacksonville Suns. So it's like, it's a different ballgame. So there's a lot going on in your head and a lot to try to get used to as a 21-year-old, sleeping on a bus.
Well, plus, you're sitting there first round like, this is going to be awesome. It's going to be glamorous. It's going to be all this stuff, right?
Nope.
And you show up in Geneva and you're like, where's everybody? Where's all the fans? This
100%.
sucks. You're hearing the buzzing of the light towers. It's like, and here I am, right?
I mean, to that point, I knew the end of my career was near when so I had surgery after I left Oakland. So the year before I'm in Oakland, which, they're drawing 4,000 a game. But the first game we played against
some of the
Yankees,
minor leagues might outdraw Oakland.
100%. We did in our AAA team outdrew Oakland pretty much that whole year because we were
Sacramento, right?
First year team, but we had 49,000 first day against the Yankees. Then the next day we were playing the White Sox on a Monday. There was like 6,000 people. But then the next year when I ended up having surgery, I come back to Syracuse, not to bury my hometown, but all of a sudden I'm playing in front of like 80 people, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm 30 years old. I'm coming off surgery, and there's like my parents in the stands. I'm like, what am I back at Liverpool? Like, it was like, so it comes full circle, man.
You could drown in a couple of sorrows at a change of pace. I'm sure he had a couple.
There you go. Drown the sorrows up the street.
Yeah. Casey was introduced to the famous wings. Finally, he got he's no longer a virgin to the change of pace wings, dude.
Best in town.
Oh my God. Yeah. Everybody's been saying that. And I, not that I didn't believe it, but I was like, okay, like how good can they possibly be? They're
Good.
I mean, it's not even close.
Legendary.
Yeah.
Like I said, a lot of famous broadcasters and, Hall of Famers have been through there. David Wells used to cook pizzas in my dad's kitchen, serve bartend when he was coming through Syracuse. Like I said, the Blue Jays, Mariano Rivera. My dad will tell. I got to get Steve Grilli, the big cheese. It's National Grilled Cheese Day. I forgot to mention that today. I just forgot that it is. I posted it. It is National Grilled Cheese Day. So, nice. We got to have one today. Some nice tomato soup.
Enjoy a good lunch.
That's right. That's right. I want to ask you, John. It's an interesting question too because, and Jason talks about this all the time. Keeping that jersey on your back for as long as you possibly can. And you kind of said, when you came to Syracuse, you're playing in front of 80 people. But what was the mindset like when you're kind of like, okay, like I think I'm ready to move on, whether it was do something else, How long did it take you to finally come to terms with the fact that you were ready to move on with your baseball career?
I mean, it happened pretty quickly because, like, I was in the big leagues. You climb that mountain forever, and I finished the year in 2000 in the big leagues. Didn't get in much because we were in a playoff run, so they went with the same 7, 8 guys. But I was somebody who was thought of as, a late bloomer kind of thing. I was 28, 29 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I went into spring training in 2001, and I'm battling for the 5th starter spot. Right at the end of spring training, they traded for Corey Lytle from Kansas City. They traded A.J. Hinch in that trade, and Ben Grieve was part of it going to Tampa. And so that kind of screwed things up for me because he was a guaranteed contract. I was not. I still had an option left. And I had a decent camp, nothing great, but Corey just had to basically pitch okay, and he was going to make the team.
Right.
And I was kind of the insurance policy going to AAA. And right at the end of the camp, we played San Diego in an exhibition in Sacramento. I started. I threw 6 innings, no runs, kind of dealt. And I had an out in my contract where 60 days, if I wasn't on a big league roster, I could leave. So fast forward, I start opening day in Sacramento. Same thing, we win. I go 6, shutout, whatever, pitching good. And then my second start, we're up in Edmonton, and second inning, I got numbness in my hand. I'm not feeling good. So that whole year, they tried to basically figure out what was going on. Ended up having surgery at the end of the season, went back and forth on the DL, tried to restart it a few times. So in my mind, I'm still like a big league guy, right? Because I was just in the big leagues. Worst case scenario, I'm a 4A guy, which I've kind of been forever.
Sure.
The insurance policy in AAA, which is what I was in Atlanta too. And so, but then once I had surgery, and all of a sudden it was like I'm 30 years old now, or 29, 30, and it was like I was a forgotten guy. I'm starting over again. And so in my mind at that point, I worked out for a few teams. I had some offers to come pitch, and then I went and worked out for teams in spring training when I got healthy because I had surgery in October at the end of the 01 season. And I started throwing, but in spring training there's 70 pitchers in camp, so they're trying to figure out their roster, not worry about some guy who's coming off surgery. So in May, once the rosters kind of shook out, I got a couple calls from the Reds, and I think I worked out for somebody in Rochester as well. But then the Marlins ended up taking a shot at me. Jay was actually down there rehabbing his elbow surgery, and so they sent me down to work out for about a month, and then I had talked to Toronto a lot because I wanted to play in Syracuse if I could, obviously close to home. And so J.P. Ricciardi was the GM then. He had come over from Oakland. So he calls me. They had a couple injuries. He's like, would you go to AAA right now, get your release from the Marlins, go. We'll put you in the pen, which I'd never really pitched in the pen before.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, no problem, whatever. And he goes, and you'll have a good shot at coming up to the big leagues. At some point, we're going to need help. I'm like, okay. So I come to Syracuse. I pitch okay. Coming off surgery, I hadn't pitched in a year. I had a 3-something ERA here, but I started seeing the writing on the wall as the year went, and I'm kind of the mop-up guy, or I'm not really getting big innings. And so at that point, I kind of told myself, before I got to the big leagues, like, if I'm ever to the point where I'm not the 1 or 2 starter, which I had been kind of my whole career, because I can handle being the 1 or 2 starter in AAA. If I'm a mop-up guy in AAA and I'm 30, maybe it's time to go. Yeah. So once I saw that, and I'm playing in front of 80 people, it was almost like, I think Jason actually said this to me at one point. He's like, at the end of the day, we're like in the top 400 of what we do in the world.
Yeah.
So you got to feel pretty good about it, even if you're in AAA.
Right.
And as good as you still feel about it, you almost are embarrassed because of where you were and now what you are in 1 year's time. So
but the mindset, man, and again, I know we all have regrets, or we all feel like, I wish I could have, I wish I would have, and anything. And I think for these kids to know, you're successful even now. To the transition, it's a hard transition. We love something that you dream about doing, and you get so close.
Yep.
And you're hanging on. I hung on. I kept hanging on. That's why I got all these jerseys, and I kept resisting. Like, I didn't want to do it. I shared this story. I had to make a rehab start in AA Portland, and my mother was like, "What are you going to do?" She was very worried. Right after I had my arm surgery, and I was teasing her through the classifieds, looking at a pizza job, the pizza delivery boy, right? Pizza with anchovies, like that movie Loverboy. So I said, "Mom, I'm going to be fine. Like, it's okay. Dad made it. I'm going to make it. If I just need your support, you got a great family, Rat." And it is, but the mindset is, in the minor leagues, man, it is tough. It is toxic, especially at AAA. Coming from where you've come from, like, you were highly touted, and you were like, man, the yellow brick road looks so amazing right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then for me, like you, AAA was that toxic level, and dealing with the ups and downs and the injuries and battling with guys who were cheating their way to the top. So I tell these, kids, and I guess, kicking it back to you, man, what would you have done differently? Would you have done anything differently? Are you happy the way things kind of were? Because it always shapes you. You say, hey, I want it this way, but we're where we're supposed to be. If you believe in our faith, I'm wearing my shirt, and after coming off Easter, man, it's like you just got to believe that, hey, I was where I was supposed to be. You know what I mean?
I agree with that to a point. I mean, I think in baseball, as you know, timing's everything. Like, you had good timing towards the end of the year and then obviously performed. My one regret is that I never got 4 or 5 starts in a row, 10 appearances out of the pen. I got 1. I threw 12 pitches and got 3 outs. And Art Howe came by and was like, hey, I haven't forgot about you for like 10 more days. I'm like, Art, come on, man. And then the next spring when I didn't make the club and then got hurt, then he's like, God, I wish I got you in more last year. And so, and then same thing like with Atlanta. I was pitcher of the year 2 years in a row in AAA, won like 25 games in the International League, and I think 1 year I was first or second in strikeouts. So pitching well, obviously with a good organization that was going to World Series. But at the top, they got Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz. Kevin Millwood won 20 games as our 5th starter.
Tough rotation to crack right there.
Yeah. So in my mind, then I signed with Oakland, and I remember Billy Beane calls me literally at 3 o'clock when I become a free agent, and he tried to draft me when the Cubs drafted me. They had the 25th pick. I went 24th. So I was told by my agent then that Oakland was taking me. I wouldn't have lasted another pick. So I had known him all the way through, and so he called me. He's like, we got a great spot for you. We got this kid, Zito, who we just drafted. He's a couple years away, which he won a Cy Young the next year.
A couple years.
Mark Mulder was in AAA, and he's like, he needs some seasoning. He won 20 games that year.
Yep. You need to be left-handed. That should be your regret. You weren't left-handed.
I wasn't left-handed, right? And then they had Tim Hudson as the ace, who at that point was a 9-game winner rookie. So they didn't know what they were going to get. So I pretty much went from Atlanta East to Atlanta West, right, with all these young studs, and I got there, but then I got hurt. So,
listen, bro,
I don't think I would have changed anything that I did. I just think my timing was terrible. In fact, when I got called to big leagues, like Billy Beane, when I'm walking in the clubhouse, he goes, "You finally got some timing in your life." Because earlier that year in 2000, I was by far and away the best pitcher. Like, I was pitcher of the year in Sacramento too. So 3 years in a row in AAA, I'm the pitcher of the year for our AAA team. Man. And Zito was in Sacramento for basically 3/4 of the year. Like, our stats are almost identical that year, but I was pitcher of the year, and he ends up winning a Cy Young the next year. So opportunity, you just don't know. That's probably my biggest regret. I also think maybe in the off season, instead of being in snowy Syracuse, I probably would have moved to, like you were down in Orlando, right? I would have probably moved to, I tossed around going to Arizona at some point. And I just think the training and being around the facility would have helped me out early in my career, especially.
Sure.
Well, listen, you moonlight Graham did a little bit. You could say that timing is everything, but I would say, even for me, I can say it in the same way that for a World Series, I lost with the Tigers in 2006 to the Cardinals, and that was my only shot at winning a World Series ring. I said I'd rather be there and lose than never get there at all. And I think, like I said, Rat, you made it to the big leagues. No one can take that away from you, brother. And, well,
to that point, when you guys were talking about when I knew I would hang it up, I can almost guarantee if I didn't have that inning in 2000 or I didn't get that call that I would have played again in 2002, because I had offers to play and I could have gone another spring. But at that point, I felt like I was at the end of the road. I still had good stuff. I was still throwing in the 90s. I didn't have the command I had after surgery. Yeah. But again, I didn't pitch a full year. But if I didn't have that inning, like to your point, I probably would have kept going for sure.
Yeah, try and get that inning. I want to ask
all these drips and vitamins and all these health shops out there now. Maybe we can make a comeback. I don't know.
Some ginger.
I don't know.
I carve up my 12-year-old team. I'm telling you, I crush them.
Hey, there's a lot of healing. The bone chips are now back in place. They've regenerated. Maybe it's time to tear them down again. Who knows?
Yeah, I love that. They got a little in me.
I gotta ask you.
Pay to watch that, but I don't know.
Before we let you go, John, I want to ask one more thing. End off on a lighter note, or maybe not. I don't know, but the movie Moneyball, I think, is like one of those iconic films now, especially because we haven't had like a great baseball movie in so long. It seems like. So I love watching that movie, but talk to us about that from someone who's been in that organization. Because I think a lot of people always want to know, all right, well, how accurate was it? How accurate was that? Art Howe and Billy Beane, those guys, how good of a job did they do portraying that?
That was pretty accurate. I mean, there's parts of the story that they kind of left out, and obviously
Right.
the biggest part they left out was that we had the greatest pitching staff in the American League at the time.
Exactly.
And they didn't really touch on that. So, but that whole, walks and taking pitches, and they just needed on-base percentage, that's all legit. And Art and Billy kind of did butt heads a little bit, and the way they portrayed Billy, like, he didn't watch games. He would go work out, and he would disappear. You'd see him before the game, and he'd disappear and go into the workout room, ride the bike, do whatever he did, and then he'd be back in the clubhouse at the end. But, I remember Billy Beane coming down to Sacramento. We had Jose Ortiz, who was a second baseman, played a few years in the big leagues and then went to Japan, but he was the MVP of the PCL that year. And Billy came through in like June and said, if you don't get 10% walks, you've never seen a day in Oakland. Wow. So he, at the time, he wasn't walking. His on-base percentage was okay, but he was hitting like 340 with 20 homers, and that was kind of the message. And then everybody we traded for that year was guys who, took pitches, good on-base percentage. They had stats where if we saw, I think it was 160 pitches, something like that, we'd win 67% of the time or something. So they were before analytics.
Yeah.
And, I think it doesn't work in the playoffs. Obviously, you're facing the Yankees, you're facing whoever. Pitchers throw strikes. It works against the 3, 4, 5 starters in the big leagues, I think, to get your wins. But aces in the playoffs and then guys coming out of the pen, they're not throwing balls. So now it's 0-2, and good luck hitting, Pedro Martinez on 0-2, right?
Yeah.
Or
that's
any of the Yankee guys.
That's the serious. That's the real. Now I want the lighter side of it. End it with maybe one of your best, most embarrassing, funniest. It doesn't have to be you. You got a funny story that you can leave us with? Something that you remember going like, oh, my God, I remember being in stitches. Because I had great abs in 2008 with all the laughs I had in that bullpen. I don't know how I even made it out to be serious and pitch. You got to have at least one funny story you might be able to share with us.
I mean, the end of my career when we were in, we did all the bullpen, because I was always a starter, so I'm in the dugout. We got to be serious. The manager's looking over my shoulder.
Starters are serious. That's why I love being a bullpen guy.
But when I got in the bullpen when I was in Syracuse, I mean, we did the stuff where, they had to drink the milk in 30 minutes, and then this guy's stomach explodes, and he's throwing up all over, like, middle of the game. Like, we're in day game in Cuse, and so I can't remember the kid's name.
Hot summer day.
Yeah, it was like 90 degrees, and, you get through about 3/4 of the milk, and you're feeling pretty good. But then all of a sudden it hits you, and he looked like he gained about 42 pounds in a matter of an hour, and then just starts throwing up and just so we had a few of those bullpen games here and there, but, nothing crazy, because as a starter, I'm sitting in the dugout, and
you got to be serious.
And most of the stories from the bus rides and the other stuff, I can't tell. It's PG.
Yeah. We could get there, but hey, the bus rides were always fun and classy. You couldn't wait to get on the bus, especially after the wins, man. When you get there, you could be stupid as you wanted to be, and fun, man. But
there's nothing like it. I mean, the camaraderie and that you felt in the brotherhood, and even now, like guys I haven't seen in 10, 15 years, you know how it is. Like you see them, and it's like you just played with them.
It becomes more nostalgic, and you miss those guys, and it's sad that you were from everywhere. You're from all these different towns and places and backgrounds and ethnicities, and you come together to pull the rope the same way and fight for the same thing, and you're actually competing against each other too, right? There's guys that you're like, oh, you're a first round pick. Guys were like, why is this guy a first round pick? So you're always, heated. Like I said, you were my rabbit, dudes, and thanks for coming on, Rad. I love you, brother. You are
fun. You too, buddy.
You're one of the good ones, and from Central New York. A star for sure. You should be in the Hall of Fame for that too, because you're a legend from Syracuse, man. And thanks for leading the charge and coming on the show. It's been a long Mound visit with Jon Ratliff.
I like it. Thanks, guys. It's been great.
We hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Jon Ratliff. Some awesome stories just from those days in the minor leagues and just getting your shot in the major leagues. I think it's a lot of what people want to hear because, not everybody gets to pitch, 13 years in the major leagues necessarily. A lot of people have that cup of coffee, but it's still, an incredible achievement to be able to hang your hat on. So we thank Jon for taking the time to come on the show. Before you guys get out of here, subscribe to the show on YouTube if you like to watch our episodes here, Top 100 Sports Network, and also follow the podcast on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Follow our social media channels. All of those are at Top 100 Sports Net, Top 100 Sports NET, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And we'll see you guys on next week's Mound Visit.